බිස්කට් වේදිකාවට දැන් පැමිණි සීග්‍රගාමී රසේ මංචි පොටේටෝ ක්‍රැකර්. බිස්කට් වේදිකාවට දැන් පැමිණි සීග්‍රගාමී රසේ මංචි පොටේටෝ ක්‍රැකර්.
On satellite, on Freeview, on cable, on radio, on mobile, on the web and around the world. This is Other Derana 24/7.
First at 9, reviving Sri Lankan Airlines. National carrier hopeful of profits within the year, but CEO says finding a partner is a challenge.
The Sri Lankan government works in mysterious ways, shall we say.
Also making headlines, resignation pressed. SLFP ministers allegedly asked the president to request Minister Ravi Karunanika to step down. Stents for all. Gazette issued stipulating maximum retail price for stents used in heart surgeries. Tale of two innings. Sri Lanka self-destruct before staging a revival. White House in chaos. US Justice Department to crack down on leaks. Good evening and a warm welcome. First at 9, the Ministry of Health today issued a gazette setting a stipulated retail price for stents used in heart surgeries. Prices have been reduced thereby by more than 66%. Minister of Health Dr. Rajitha Senaratne stated today that prices of drugs at private hospitals will also be controlled.
The Health Minister took the initiative to provide free stents at government hospitals due to problems caused by the high price of stents for cardiac surgeries. In private hospitals, however, cardiac surgery patients continued to face difficulties due to the high prices of stents. Minister of Health, Nutrition and Indigenous Medicine Dr. Rajitha Senaratne made the amendments to the pricing schedule in accordance with the National Medicines Regulatory Authority Act No. 5 of 2015. Accordingly, metal stents used for heart surgeries were reduced from 75,000 rupees to 24,000 rupees and drug-eluting stents were reduced from 350,000 rupees to 105,000 rupees. The Ministry of Health also said the National Drugs Regulatory Authority will conduct investigations into whether the stents are being marketed at the relevant prices. Meanwhile, Minister of Health Dr. Rajitha Senaratne expressed his views regarding the gazetting of new stent prices at an event held at the Vidya Ravindra Temple in Gampaha.
Prices of 48 necessary drugs and eye lenses have been controlled. Releasing a gazette at midnight last night, we have reduced the prices of stents. I have informed private hospitals to charge patients the amended prices. We will control all drug prices at private hospitals soon.
Parliamentarian Bandula Gunawardena today alleged that a gazette postponing all provincial council elections is about to be issued. He made the claim addressing an event organised by the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna in Kotikavatta today.
Sources at the government press say that today is about to be the day a gazette postponing all local government elections until 2019 is issued. Instead of a plan to develop the country, all the ministers have private agendas. The JVP is trying to stop the no-confidence motion at all costs. They contributed to bring good governance to power, and the JVP will not be able to wash their hands of this. The JVP should bear part of the responsibility in the country's destruction.
And the chairman of the Public Representations Committee on Constitutional Reforms, Lal Vijayanayake, says a constitution should be initiated through the public via the people's mandate. He made this remark addressing a seminar on the proposed new constitution held at the headquarters of the Organisation of Professional Associations yesterday.
A constitution is a country's fundamental law. It is an agreement between the state and the people on being governed. That is why this constitution-making process was initiated from the people. People voted on the 8th of January asking for democracy, national reconciliation and a constitution based on rights.
It is useful to take the process evaluation by reference to the experience of other countries, how the process is used for constitution making, and our own experiences in constitution making. I don't think we should expand our ministerial portfolios beyond a certain point. It was fixed 30, but national government came and upset the whole thing. That should be a strict bar, whether national, whether coalition, that should remain at 30.
And the interim findings by the Norwegian expert investigating the Umaoy multipurpose development project suggests that seepage in the main tunnel and the resulting dearth of groundwater were caused because a proper feasibility study or environmental impact assessment were not carried out before the project. The interim report, compiled by Brent Agard, which includes several recommendations, was handed over to President Maithripala Sirisena yesterday.
Constructions of the Umaoy multipurpose development project began in 2007, carried out by an Iranian company. It is the largest multipurpose scheme started in Sri Lanka after the Mahavali project. However, a water leakage occurred in the cement covering of a 26-kilometer underground tunnel which runs through Bandaravela and nearby areas, resulting in a severe dearth in many wells in the surrounding areas and 7,037 houses being marked at risk. People protested against the project, which caused the government to temporarily halt the excavation process. Handing over the interim report, Norwegian expert Bent Agard, who was tasked with investigating the water leakage in the main tunnel of the Umaoy project, was of the view that a better comprehensive preliminary study could have prevented the water ingress into the tunnel and that machinery used for the project had not been capable of proper strengthening of the tunnel walls. The expert recommended the acquisition of special grout materials and machinery before drilling the remaining 4.5 kilometers of the tunnel. Accepting the report, President Maithripala Sirisena said the disruption caused by such hasty implementation due to political decisions is an important lesson for the implementation of future development activities.
And expressing views on the Norwegian expert's report, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa says, although the expert was required to produce a report as to what measures should be taken regarding the Umaoy project going forward, the faults of the previous government and the regime have been highlighted instead.
If the government is attempting to assign blame, even Anurukumara Dissanayake of the JVP will have to be accused, because I think he is the person who brought a cabinet paper saying the Umaoy project should be made an agricultural project. We accept that we did this project. The technical consultants appointed are also responsible for producing reports every 5 meters, but they haven't said anything for 150 meters. Faults of this government should also be looked at.
The former president also responded to accusations of selling lands on freehold.
I have not sold on freehold. I leased it to Laos for a considerable amount. Land bought by the Shangri-La Hotel is private. We changed the act afterwards to prohibit the sale of private land to foreigners on freehold. But now all the lands are sold, including Galle Fort. This government changed the act right after they came to power.
Moving on from developments of the controversial Umaoy project, State Minister of Mahavali Development Mahinda Amarveera revealed today that there are requests from parliamentarians to the President and Prime Minister calling for Minister Ravi Karunanayke's resignation. Many other politicians also expressed their views today on the no-confidence motion brought against the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Many SLFP ministers have requested the President to ask Minister Ravi to resign from his post. As per my knowledge, the UNP also made that request of the Prime Minister. The court will decide whether he is right or wrong. We think that Minister Ravi will take the right decision in this regard and allow the investigation to take place independently.
The joint opposition brought the no-confidence motion and asked him to resign from the post. Not everyone has to sign it. I wouldn't use my vote because I've abstained from voting in Parliament thus far. It's a decision by the joint opposition. The
Commission of Inquiry is revealing that Minister Ravi had committed this fraudulent act by joining hands with the former central bank governor and his son-in-law. He is a fraud.
We completely support the no-confidence motion against Minister Ravi Karnanayaka. He should resign.
I am of a different view. I see no point in someone resigning without it being proven that they've done anything wrong. Ravi Karnanayaka was never a beggar. He's a successful businessman. If he has done any wrongdoing, it must be proven by law.
Party leaders are discussing this and they will come to a decision soon. We are abiding by the law of this country.
We are saying with confidence that we will take a decision as a party once the debate on the matter is concluded. We will only raise our hands against Ravi Karnanayaka during the vote on the no-confidence motion.
After discussions with the President, we will as a team make a decision on how to use our vote on the no-confidence motion.
We as parliamentarians from the SLFP will support the no-confidence motion against Minister Ravi Karnanayaka.
The President had once discussed the matter with the Prime Minister. It's not good for the government to go on like this when there are severe allegations on monetary fraud.
Although a commission of inquiry is not a court, we can't criticize what happens there. Witnesses have the liberty to give their testimonies the way they want. This government is different in that we will take legal action against ministers.
Vietmaga society claims that the government is accusing it of extremism while maintaining a liberal attitude towards real extremists. Representatives of the society made these comments at a seminar held in Kuwait today.
Another phase of the Vietmaga conference was held in Shark City in Kuwait with the participation of hundreds of Sri Lankans currently living in the country.
Vigneswaran goes to the north and says Sinhalese don't have the right to live in the north. This is after living 65 years among the Sinhalese. And then he brings in a rule which forbids Tamil youth from getting married to Sinhalese youth. But his two sons have gotten married to Sinhalese women. No parliamentarian attached to this government ever says anything against his extremist ideas. But they never hesitate to call us extremists when we speak against those kinds of people.
What was the reason they gave when the harbour was handed over to China? Their reason was that they can't pay off the debt. We have around 25 years to pay off $1,750 million of debt. We have already paid $500 million off it. The government betrayed a country that could have been developed like Singapore for $1,120 million.
Derana has been following a number of rackets which target the younger generation, the future of our nation. Today, we were able to reveal a large-scale heroin racket in Badulla.
Our informant engaged in drug racketeering for a long time in Badulla using credit exchange facilities via mobile phone. Acting on his information, Derana launched a plan with Badulla Anti-Corruption Unit to learn more about the racket. First, a woman engaged in the racket was contacted by phone, which led to the recovery of a stash of heroin. Acting on information given by her, another racketeer was contacted under the guise of wanting to purchase heroin. He too was arrested by the police. After questioning him, a stash of heroin hidden in a shrubbery in Badulla was recovered. Other Derana will continue to follow rackets that target the youth of Sri Lanka.
And former Director General of the Wildlife Conservation Department, Dr. Sumit Pilapitiya, emphasises that political interference is the main obstacle in the preservation of the Yala National Park. He made the remark at an event in Colombo recently.
Dr. Sumit Pilapitiya was speaking at a session organised by Sarai Village seeking to encourage and provide tips for the general public and foreign tourists on how to enjoy the Yala National Park as responsible visitors.
Since 2008 to 2015, the visitation has increased by over 1,000%, which has resulted in a lot of indiscipline and problems, harassment of animals inside the park. We don't see much change happening from the top down. From the political level, we don't see the commitment necessary to make sure that the park is conserved and preserved. And the way this is going, in a few years' time, there will be no Yala left for us. The biggest problem seems to be interference at the political level in managing this park.
And it's time now to take a look at a few other stories making news from across Sri Lanka.
Two people with concealed faces robbed a private bank in Piliandala before fleeing on a motorbike on the 3rd. The incident was recorded on CCTV. Four Sri Lankan passengers were apprehended while attempting to smuggle 116 kilograms of wallapata worth 12 million rupees at the Bandaranaike International Airport last night. The suspects were bound for Dubai via India, and the four suspects were attempting to smuggle the narcotics in their checked-in luggage. Two bodies floating in Beliholoya at Matugama in Hangurankatha yesterday were recovered after locals informed it to police. They were identified to be 15 and 19 years of age and have been missing from their homes since last Tuesday. Two people sustained serious injuries when a bus collided with a train in Talaimanar along the Medawachia-Talaimanar railway line. The driver of the bus is seriously injured, and the police said his careless driving led to the accident at the unguarded level crossing.
Welcome back in your business news. Chief Executive Officer of Sri Lankan Airlines, Captain Suren Ratwatta, says that the national carrier is awaiting government approval for its restructuring plans. Speaking to Bloomberg today, he said that the airline must strike a balance between having sufficient capital and not being a competitor when finding a partner to restructure the loss-making entity.
The restructuring efforts are ongoing at the moment. We've submitted a plan to the government and we're waiting for approval. We might lose one or two more aircraft. We've pulled out of most of Europe. London's the only one left. We're still expanding quite significantly into India and also Australia. So it's not all doom and gloom. There's still hope out there. The partnership search is in the hands of the government. My job is to run the company day to day. There's been talk of involvement of Japanese carriers, but I believe the initial push came from a group of Sri Lankan investors. There's been a few overtures. The government is currently talking to some possible partners. It's a bit of a fine balance between finding one with the capital and one who's not a competitor.
The government can't surely be keeping you in the dark about its plans, as you're alluding to almost. You must have a rough timeline as to when you're going to IPO. Come on, for God's sake, man.
Well, the Sri Lankan government works in mysterious ways, shall we say, and it's sometimes best left alone. Things are turning around. We just got a big problem is the cost base. We have to reduce the cost base. If we can do that, we'll be profitable this year. Our lack of capital is what really constrains us. Expansion is on the cards. I need more aircraft. The government is obviously not in a position to pump capital into the airline. This is a fast-moving business. If we don't act very quickly, I'd say in the next 6 months we need to get this thing sorted. We're going to be left behind as more and more capacity is added to the market and we lose market share.
And in business overseas, US employees hired more workers than expected in July and raised their wages, indicating growing tightness in the labor market. The US Labor Department said yesterday non-farm payrolls increased by 209,000 last month and that June's employment gain was revised up to 231,000 from the previously reported 222,000. Average hourly earnings increased 0.3% in July after gaining 0.2% in June, marking the biggest rise in 5 months. Although the US economy is near full employment, wage growth has not been strong because many of the jobs being created are in low-wage industries. It was a mixed bag for Sri Lanka today at the SSE, with a morning capitulation suggesting that the second test would be over well before time. Forced to follow on after being bowled out for 183, Dimuth Karunaratne and Kusal Mendes put on a 191-run partnership as Sri Lanka counter-attacked.
Sri Lanka began the day at 50 for 2, a massive 572 runs behind India, and lost wickets in pairs all through the morning session. Dinesh Chandimal and Kusal Mendes lost their wickets before 15 had been added to the overnight score. Niroshan Dickwalla offered a possible blueprint for dealing with India's rampant spinners as he swept his way to 51, but Sri Lanka stumbled to 183 all out. With Sri Lanka forced to follow on, Uppal Taranga suffered another early dismissal, but Dimuth Karunaratne and Kusal Mendes offered the resistance that was missing in the first innings. Mendes eventually fell for a fine 110 off 135 balls, and Sri Lanka went to stumps at 209 for 2, still 230 runs behind India, but with Karunaratne not out on 92.
The World Athletics Championships began in London yesterday, launched in style by Mo Farah, who picked up his 10th consecutive gold in global track finals in front of over 55,000 home fans. Usain Bolt was also in action in the first round of the 100 meters, winning his heat at a comfortable 10.08 seconds.
Mo Farah survived being tripped twice, reporting later that he had to have stitches on an injured leg, but still was able to unleash a trademark sprint finish in the 10,000 meters, finishing ahead of Joshua Cheptegei and Paul Tanui. Usain Bolt, seeking a 4th gold at the event in his final appearance, recovered from a poor start to overtake the field in his 100-meter heat. Among his likely competitors in the finals, Justin Gatlin clocked a time of 10.05 seconds and Christian Coleman won his first heat in 10.01 seconds.
And in tennis, after the exits of several top seeds at the City Open, second seed Kei Nishikori had to save 3 match points before beating world number 225 Tommy Paul yesterday. His semi-final opponent in Washington, D.C. will be 5th seed Alexander Zverev, while the other semi-final will be Jack Sock against Kevin Anderson.
World number 9 Kei Nishikori had to save 3 match points in the second set against Tommy Paul, 2 in the tiebreak, fighting back hard to win the match 3-6, 7-6, 6-4. 20-year-old Alexander Zverev, however, had too much in his arsenal for Russia's Daniil Medvedev, winning 6-2, 6-4 in less than an hour. Third seed Milos Raonic was undone by big-serving American Jack Sock, who won their quarterfinal 7-5, 6-4. His opponent will be Kevin Anderson, who needed 3 sets to beat India's Yuki Bhamri 6-4, 4-6, 6-3.
In news overseas, U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions says 4 people have been charged over leaks as the Trump administration launches a crackdown on various embarrassing disclosures. Sessions said the suspects were accused of divulging classified material or concealed contacts with foreign intelligence officers.
Addressing media, U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions said no government could be effective when its leaders could not talk freely in confidence with foreign leaders. He added that policies on compelling journalists to reveal their sources were under review.
We are taking a stand. This culture of leaking must stop. I have this message for our friends in the intelligence community. The Department of Justice is open for business.
Let's now take a look at other stories making news from across the world.
Rwanda's incumbent leader Paul Kagame has sealed a landslide victory in presidential elections, granting him a third term in office and extending his 17 years in power. The country's electoral commission said Kagame had won a staggering 98% of votes. 59-year-old Kagame, a former guerrilla leader, has led Rwanda since the end of the 1994 genocide that left more than 800,000 people dead. The United Nations Security Council is scheduled to vote on a US drafted resolution that aims to slash North Korea's $3 billion annual export revenue by a third over its intercontinental ballistic missile tests. The draft resolution would also ban new joint ventures with North Korea and any new investment in existing joint ventures. Venezuela's controversial new Constituent Assembly has opened despite fierce opposition at home and abroad, dubbed by opponents as a power grab by President Nicolas Maduro. Maduro, however, says the powerful assembly will bring peace after months of crisis.
Before we wrap up tonight's news, it's time to take a look at how the weather will be for the next 24 hours. Increasing wind speeds can be expected in the northern, north-central, central, Uva and southern provinces, as well as in the Batticaloa and Ampara districts and the central hills of Sri Lanka. Showers can be expected in the western, Sabaragamuwa and central provinces and in the Galle and Matra districts. Here's a look at the city-by-city forecast for the next 24 hours. And that's all the news you have for tonight on our prime time news. Before we go, we'd like to take you to Kataragama, where the annual Asala Perahara of the Ruhunu Kataragama Mahadevalaya took to the streets for a 12th night. The highlight of the celebration was the firewalking ritual carried out by early this morning, where people, young and old, walked over a bed of charcoal embers as means of cleansing themselves from sins they had committed. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.